We begin this hour with that stunning national security breach. A journalist for The Atlantic says he was added to a group chat that involved top U.S. officials discussing sensitive plans to attack Houthi targets in Yemen. Now, those in the group chat included the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, Vice President J.D. Vance, and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. The Atlantic published a piece yesterday describing how its editor-in-chief, that's Jeffrey Goldberg, was added to the chat on the Signal messaging app earlier this month.
I found it completely improbable that the top national security leadership of the United States would be discussing on a commercial messaging app the possible imminent attack on another country. We have a responsibility to alert the American public in a democracy that this is what the government is doing. This is how the government is thinking about problems. And when you discover a massive security breach, it's our responsibility to report that.
Now, the National Security Council said in a statement that the thread appears to be authentic, adding that they're, quote, reviewing how an inadvertent number was added. Secretary Hegseth was asked about these reports as he arrived in Hawaii. And as you heard moments ago, he said nobody was texting war plans. He also criticized the journalists who broke this story.
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, 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 or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does.
And we have team coverage for you on this morning. Nikole Killion is on Capitol Hill tracking what lawmakers are saying about this leak. But let's begin with Natalie Brand at the White House. Natalie, good morning to you. What information specifically was allegedly shared in this chat?
Good morning, Errol. Well, according to this bombshell report by journalist Jeffrey Goldberg, top administration officials who you detailed, including the president's national security team, were discussing highly sensitive details about a bombing operation targeting Houthi rebels in Yemen. Goldberg said that the messages from an account called Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, laid out plans for a strike and information, including weapons packages, targets, and timing shortly before this strike took place on March 15th. And thinking back to that time, this was actually a strike that President Trump talked about after it had occurred on social media, saying that the administration would use overwhelming force until Houthis, backed by Iran, stop shipping attacks.
Now, what is the administration saying about the authenticity of these messages, and what is President Trump saying about all this?
Well, Errol, as you mentioned, the National Security Council said that these messages seem to be authentic. A spokesman, again, saying that they were reviewing how this happened, but also in the statement to CBS said the success of the operation demonstrates that there were no threats to service members or national security. Now, President Trump, when he was asked about this Monday by reporters, he said that it was the first he was hearing about it. But later, his press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, put out a statement saying that the president still has the utmost confidence in his national security team, including Mike Waltz. As you heard, the defense secretary trying to really downplay all of this, criticizing The Atlantic, criticizing the journalist who wrote this, and saying that he was not texting war plans. He was asked by reporters traveling with him to Hawaii whether this information was classified. He didn't answer a question about that. But that's really the big concern here, that highly sensitive or classified information was being shared on this public app, which of course, is encrypted, but available to anyone, to you or to me. And that's why lawmakers, former national security officials, they're so worried about this, because if that information had been made public before the strike, that could have put troops in harm's way, not to mention adversaries potentially monitoring unclassified lines, not to mention all of the hacking incidents that we've been reporting on in recent times, Errol. So a lot of concerns here, a lot of questions about this still remain.
All right, Natalie Brand at the White House. Thank you for that. Let's cross over to Capitol Hill now with our congressional correspondent, Nikole Killion. Nikole, good morning. House Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer weighed in on this apparent leak yesterday. Let's just quickly play that for our viewers.
The administration is addressing what happened. Apparently an inadvertent phone number made it onto that thread. They're going to track that down and make sure that it doesn't happen again. What you did see, though, I think, was top-level officials doing their job, doing it well, and executing on a plan with precision.
This kind of carelessness is how people get killed. It's how our enemies can take advantage of us. It's how our national security falls into danger.
Nikole, the House Speaker there not questioning the authenticity of these messages. What might the next steps be here?
Well, there have been calls for a congressional investigation. A lot of that is coming from Democrats who believe that that should occur. In fact, that is something that Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries told me when I asked him about that signal chat. Take a listen.
There should absolutely be a congressional investigation so that we can understand what happened, why did it happen, and how do we prevent this type of national security breach from ever happening again. This is reckless, irresponsible, and dangerous.
He went on to say and question the credentials of these various national security officials, suggesting, even calling them a phony, if you will, because he argued that if the president is really hiring the best and the brightest, then a mistake like this really shouldn't have happened. And even keep in mind, Mike Waltz is a former member of Congress, someone many members up here know quite well, and even some of his fellow colleagues called this a very grave mistake. Both Republicans and Democrats, other Republican members tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, saying, mistakes happen. Sometimes we all inadvertently text someone that we didn't mean to. But when you're talking about national security concerns and issues, again, there was bipartisan outrage that this is something that just simply shouldn't have happened.
And Nikole, I know you'll continue to track that. I want to ask you about another top priority for Congress right now. That's budget reconciliation. We remember the House and Senate version of a budget passed recently. So what key meeting will now determine what becomes law?
So there will be a meeting today between Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune, as well as the committee chairs that head up the tax portion of this bill, if you will, House Ways and Means, the Budget Committee, which are kind of taking the lead on this package. As we've been reporting for some time, obviously both the House and Senate have different versions of this budget package to advance the president's agenda. The Senate version is kind of what you would call a skinny bill or measure, where the focus is really on providing more funding for border security, enhancements at the border, energy. The Senate bill, the House bill rather, is much bigger. It's more in line with that one big beautiful bill that the president has often talked about. It includes an extension of his tax cuts. There's talk about maybe lifting the debt ceiling in that package. So it is a much broader. So this is really going to be a meeting of the minds. White House officials will be included in this as well, including the Treasury Secretary, to see if they can all get on one page.
All right, Nikole Killion on Capitol Hill. Thank you, Nikole.